The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 5 minutes the conference will start. So please finish your coffee, go to the toilets if needed, and have a seat. Thank you. In 5 minutes we'll start. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2 minutes we'll start. Please take a seat. Last people are taking a seat. I'm checking in the communication rooms. Are we online? Yes. Welcome everybody here in Arnhem, but also welcome everybody who's participating online. An event hosted by ELAAD. ELAAD is a collaboration of Dutch grid operators. We're founded 14 years ago, and we try to integrate e-mobility into the energy system. Started, of course, by passenger cars, which we could charge on a smart way, relieving the grids from peaks. But the standards and protocols we developed for smart charging are also applicable to other types of vehicles, scooters, buses, heavy-duty trucks, and even aviation. The coming days, we have what we call a Plugfest, an event where chargers, car manufacturers come together on research and development, a lot of testing, kind of a hackathon for hardware at our event. But we also wanted to give new techniques a momentum, and that's why we organized this conference on aviation. With our question, are the standards and protocols such as OCPP applicable for new types of transportation? Well, not for the people online, but the people who are here in Arnhem. Please take note, we don't have any emergency plans, so if you hear a sound, there is an incident. There are multiple ways of exiting the building. One is over there on the right, a large exit over there. We don't plan to use it, but if something happens, know where you can exit our office. For now, other things to keep in mind, some presentations, halfway a break. We have people online, and not only participants who are online, but also a lot of representations and speakers from the Caribbean, because there are multiple opportunities not only for using standards and protocols within Europe or across the globe, but you also want to give it a kickstart, a flying start. And there are many, many possibilities in the Caribbean. So that's part of the second part of this conference after the webinar, after the halftime break. Before the halftime break, after the presentations, there's a small panel. So if you have some questions in Arnhem, please raise your hand. But if you're online, feel free to use the chat and state your questions. But first, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Professor Steinbuch, an expert on electric aviation. Maarten, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Baerte. Let's give him an hand. Thank you for your nice introduction. I'm not an expert in aviation. I'm trying to become a little bit of an expert there. I know, in fact, more about electric driving because we started quite early as university to work on powertrains for cars, and first hybrids, of course, and then later full electric driving. And I always tell the story that when I became part of the formal advisory board for the Dutch government, the Formula E team, the FET, I was driving my gasoline-driven Renault Kangoo. So I was for 2 years in the FET talking about electric driving, and we were doing research in our group in Eindhoven on electric driving. But I did not have a clue what electric driving basically was about for a consumer. And then there was this famous Auke Hoekstra who built an Excel sheet how cheap it could be to drive electric in those days as a business driver. So that's why I basically, in 2013, I founded my own company. And in that company, I gave myself a loan from the savings we had to lower our mortgage in due time, to pay off our hypotheek, our mortgage loan, and we give ourselves a loan in the BV, and from that money I bought my first Tesla, which at that time was very, very, very expensive. And the reason I could actually bought that Tesla was that I had for one weekend, I had a Roadster, Tesla Roadster, just to experience electric driving with the Roadster. And at the end of the weekend, I said to my wife, please take the car also for a moment. He said, no, 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 I drive with you, but I don't dare to drive. And then I said, yeah, you should really experience it yourself. And then she took the driving wheel in the Tesla Roadster, and at the traffic light, we were standing next to a BMW boy, so to speak. And she was looking at the BMW boy, and the traffic lights went on green, and then she pushed the pedal, the current pedal, completely down, and then boom. And then when we arrived at home, she said, you can buy the Tesla. So that was how my journey started in electric driving. And since then, I know that electricity basically will transform the world. In all aspects, I think, of the world, electricity is the most pure way of getting sustainable green sources, wind and solar, into the society. So after having been working for about 10 years or more in electric driving, 2 years ago I was triggered by the thoughts about flying. And that's basically where I want to tell you a little bit more. We all know this picture, right? So the old-fashioned, at the left side, the gasoline engine, which is far from optimal if you look to the transformation from energy in to energy out, effective energy out. Because most of the energy you generate with a combustion engine is heat. And that heat is normally not effectively used in propulsion for your motion. Whereas an electric motor is very efficient. It's also less dependent on the speed, so there is no need for a gearbox, so there you gain another few percent. But the key thing is that electric driving is very efficient. It's the best way to transform electrical green energy into motion. If you think about aviation, I had the picture that flying is very bad for climate. It is very bad for climate. And I learned a little bit that this is completely false information, basically. An airplane is very efficient. Especially modern airplanes are very efficient. The key thing is that if you fly an airplane, there is no rolling resistance. The only resistance you have, basically, is the air resistance, like a car. If you drive, say, more than 60 kilometers per hour with your car, the aerodynamic losses become larger than your rolling resistance. So in the end, if you have high-speed driving at the highway, then the aerodynamic losses are larger than the rolling losses. However, with an airplane, there are never or hardly ever rolling losses. You only have aerodynamic losses, but they are optimal or optimized, because the whole thing is that you want to have as many nautical miles with an airplane as possible, given the amount of energy you take with you. So an airplane is completely optimized for aerodynamics. And that's not the case with a car, right? So an airplane is made such that if you have a big wingspan, that you actually have the lift force only a fraction of the forces you need to have your propulsion. On comparable basis, you could say that if you are sitting in an airplane, compared to what you say if you are driving in a car, as a person, it takes 1 to 30. So you drive 1 to 30. So 1 liter, you can drive 30 kilometers. Compare this to a car, when if you are single in your car, in your gasoline car, you say you use 1 to 15. So an airplane is in fact better than a fossil car, at least if you are alone in your car. If you are with 2 in your gasoline car, it's similar. If you are with 3 in your car, it's better to use the car. Right? So flying is quite effective. The problem is that most of us, now and then, take the plane to go for a weekend to Barcelona or to Prague. And that's the problem, because you will not do that with your car for only a weekend. So our behavior makes flying polluting, not the plane itself. If you think about this, and you think about the potential of electric flying, you can sort of reason from this reasoning that taking the electric plane in the future will be better than taking your electric car if you drive alone. Right? And sometimes even better than a train. Interesting, eh? Now, if you look to CO2 emissions, these are the CO2 emissions, sorry for the Dutch language. This is the exhaust in CO2 per passenger kilometer. That's the normal, how you express it. And there are some things behind, like the 70% loading factor for trains, etc., etc. So typically, in dark blue, it's a CO2 emission, and the light blue is the effect that you fly on a certain height, and that you have also exhaust at that height. That also gives equivalent losses. So typically, planes are per passenger kilometer. Even if you look to the dark blue, it's even better, as I said, than with a fossil car. And that was for me the most amazing thing inside when I went into flying. With green options, of course, cars and trains are better always than fossil-driven planes. But then again, if you go to electric flying, then you can imagine that this picture will change dramatically, and I will show that in a minute. However, is it possible to have electric planes? Well, this was my first own experience with electric flying. This is my experience, I think, 1.5 years ago with eFlight Academy in Teugen. This is in the Pipistrel. eFlight in Teugen has 4 planes. They are 2 passenger planes. They have 22 kilowatt-hour batteries on board. They can fly for 50 minutes, plus the reserve they need to have, about 30 minutes, I think. So 50 minutes flying, the cruising speed is about 150 kilometers per hour. I felt it like an amazing experience, like my first Tesla drive, because there's hardly any sound. There's a huge acceleration. It's all very lightweight designed. It's like your first electric driving experience. There is a slight problem with the Pipistrel because the total weight of the pilot and the passenger cannot exceed 180 kilos. So for me, it was necessary to find a pilot with a lower weight. But that can change over depending on who's with you. And I lost some weight since, so I'm trying to do my best. But there are many people who say forget about electric flying because there's hardly any possibility to really gain CO2 benefits. This is a cumulative a chart of the length in miles, and vertically are the percentage in CO2 emissions. And you see there for shorter flights, it is as a percentage of the total is limited, but still there is up to 500 miles, there is a significant portion which you could gain. The more important from this picture is, this is a picture of the current mobility with flying. The question is, if electric flying mobility is going to happen, then it might disrupt the way we go forward with mobility, especially up to 500 kilometers. So the number of flights might increase immensely at the left side, because this flying is the most fastest and one of the most cleanest way to move. Now, going back to the bigger picture of sustainable flying. What are the options we have? We have, of course, sustainable air fuels. Normally, nowadays it's often done by mixing some bioethanol or bio-kerosene. But in the future, the only real scalable solution is to get CO2 out of the air and to get hydrogen from green electricity. And it's a standard chemical process to make from CO2 and H2 to make kerosene. So the sustainable air fuels in a scalable form is only possible if you can get CO2 out of the air and H2 from green electricity and then make kerosene. The techniques to get hydrogen from green electricity are there. However, they are still costly, the electrolyzers. The technology to get CO2 out of the air are still very costly. So the capital expenditure you need for the installation to get CO2 out of the air, it's not yet scalable. But I believe there are various startups, for instance Carbion, they are using membrane technology to get in a far more efficient way than huge installations like in Iceland to get CO2 out of the air. So I'm convinced that in 10 years from now we know how to get CO2 out of the air in a way which is scalable in a bigger format. Pure hydrogen, of course, there are a lot of EU funds and growth funds to work on hydrogen-propelled planes. That could be two versions. Either you return hydrogen back into electricity, or you burn it. That's also possible, direct burning of hydrogen. That's also non-trivial, because to transport hydrogen, you have to cool it down to minus 170 degrees, or you have to take it with you under huge pressure. That's both not trivial in a plane. Then there are hybrid versions, of course, with all combinations possible, and finally battery electric. I think that for the shorter range planes, up to 500 kilometers, we first will see a stage of hybrid, plug-in hybrids, then battery electric. Maybe in a mid-range for 500 kilometers to say 1500 kilometers, we will see a hydrogen development for the next 20 years or so. And for the higher ranges, so above 1000 or 1500 kilometers, I expect that we will see solar fuels or sustainable air fuels. I don't see a solution in the next 50 years or so that you can utilize a battery electric plane to fly from the Netherlands to America. I mean, forget it. That will be sustainable air fuels, I think. I cannot give a talk without showing this one from Michael Liebrecht. It's a very good thing. It's the hydrogen ladder. The basic conclusion here is use hydrogen if there is no other option. I cannot say it too frequently because still many people think that hydrogen is a source of energy. It's not. You have to make hydrogen from green energy. You lose a lot of heat. So you need 3 times as many wind turbines and solar panels to do the same mobility thing with hydrogen as with pure electricity. So if there's no other option, do it. If you have other options, forget about hydrogen. Now, coming back to electric flying, these are some plots from Gerben Broekema, who is a star in calculating a lot of things. Here you can see a sort of comparison with driving an electric car, driving by train, or flying a battery electric airplane. So in dark blue or green, you can see the base case with the right-hand side for a car with 4 passengers. And then, of course, you see that, sorry, that's with 1 passenger, and the best case is then the sort of green-yellow. That's the case where you drive with 4 people, say, in a Tesla-like car. So, of course, with 4 people, you are doing the best. With 1 single occupant in an electric car, you are using a lot for every trip, in this case, kilowatt hours per 400 kilometers. The train with a load factor of 60% in best case, and the lowest case a load factor of 30%. So the right-hand side of that plot is 30% load case, so if the train is not in the rushing hour, and then the best case in the load factor of 60% on average, then you have the same usage as the best case in the car. And look at battery electric aircraft. Amazing, eh? It's lower than the case where you drive alone in your electric car. It's even lower than the train with a load factor of 60%. Right? So this is of course the key, that it is much faster. Right? So this is by car, this is by train, this is the time, door-to-door travel times from Maastricht to Hamburg in the light blue and Maastricht to Zurich in the dark blue side. Now, once I had these insights, I thought this could potentially be a future. A future not only to replace part of the current air mobility, but it could be an alternative for our mobility in general to have much faster door-to-door travel in, say, Europe or any other place in the world where regions can be connected much faster. And then there are, of course, things like noise. I hope that the sound is also going to work. I don't hear anything, because then I'm going to skip this one, because this one is about noise. Can you? Yes. This is a video made by Joby Aviation to compare the sound of helicopters and their planes. These are all classical aircraft, of course. There's some explanation also in this video about why do certain frequencies occur because of propellers. Helicopters, we all know they are nasty with respect to noise. Different spectrum also, lower. Another fossil-driven helicopter. It's a different wake generation of helicopters. Because the diameter is larger, you get a different spectrum of the sound. And now Joby Aviation, we have seen them in Paris last year. So the more propellers you have, you can rotate them slower. That depresses sound. See the difference? Everyone who was at Teugen, so for some time you can hear the E-flight pipistrels, and then you can also hear the normal flights taking off there. It's a world of difference. And then, if you think about, if you want to go from A to B, you need an airport in A, you need an airport in B. How beautiful is then to utilize flying instead of making a new high-speed rail? Because then you have from A to B, you have to destroy nature, you generate sound along the whole track, particles, etc., etc. These are the key points why I think that electric mobility with flying has a beautiful future. So, this is about rethinking the mobility segmentation. Limited range e-flying is at least as clean as electric driving or train per passenger kilometer. Limited range e-flying could be as cheap as electric driving per kilometer. That's a matter of time. Limited e-flying is much more cheap than the train or high-speed rail. Yeah, you don't want to know how much money the Dutch government is putting into trains. And we have 3,000 and more local airports in Europe. We have already in the Netherlands, we have 22 regional airports. In the Netherlands alone, 22. More than 3,000 in Europe. They are hardly used. They are hardly used. And you can connect all these regions. That's basically the basis for the growth fund proposal we proposed as an association in the Netherlands last year. It was not successful in its application, but the video still is a beautiful video. I want to show you the video. We founded the Electric Flying Connection as the association for all people who like to work together to make this happen. So I will start now the video.
It's time to take off into a new era of aviation, where electric planes soar cleanly and quietly across the horizon. Short-haul flights and travel by car will no longer harm the environment, but instead pave the way for growth and innovation. Imagine a world where everyone, from businesses to families, can travel zero emission from door to door. Electric flying will connect all European economic regions in under 4 hours. The consortium is led by the Electric Flying Connection, which includes 30 Dutch companies, research institutes, and service organizations. We propose a 7-year national growth program with 30 partners that cover all the necessary positions, the whole value chain. To boost the Dutch aviation industry, we invite the national government to participate. By combining rail and road infrastructure with regional airports, we can create fast door-to-door connections across Europe. With the addition of battery electric planes in sectors such as automotive, aerospace, and IT, truly emission-free trips become a reality. With a successful history in cutting-edge charging infrastructure, we are ready to take the lead in this new era of mobility. As part of our 7-year national cooperation program, we are investing in 5 main innovation projects. Inter-regional mobility solutions. We will develop the digital infrastructure for inter-regional mobility, making it easy to book a flight from a regional airport to any other airport within 500 kilometers, such as London or Paris, with door-to-door travel in under 4 hours. Aircraft processes and components. We will design smart and clean pilot factories to produce and test essential parts of electric aircraft in the Netherlands. This process has already proven to be commercially viable for 2 types of battery electric aircraft and is ready for large-scale production in the Netherlands. E-Mobility Hub. We will develop the basis for a European network of the future, utilizing zero-emission flight and regional airport infrastructure to connect customers from next door to the rest of the Netherlands and ultimately the entire European continent. E-mobility hubs will coordinate ground traffic and air traffic with larger hubs, providing energy centers and shared facilities for smart production engineering, maintenance, and training. Knowledge network and available education. We will educate and train the talent of tomorrow, working closely with Luchtvaart in Transity to connect university, middle, and higher vocational education. The power of expertise will be unlocked by learning from industry-leading mentors. Entrepreneur ecosystem. We will create the optimal environment for maximum growth of entrepreneurs, providing a reliable network, support for investment, training, and leadership to build the foundation for a sustainable business environment. With our investment in electric aviation, the Netherlands is buying a ticket for the pole position in emission-free inter-regional mobility for short and mid-range distances. This proposed program will create activity in the region, new jobs in logistics, industry, research, education, and services. At the same time, this new way of mobility offers a clean, fast, and affordable alternative to achieve 5% of the Dutch climate goals. We're developing a new international ecosystem for smart and sustainable mobility from the Netherlands, because we believe in the power of cooperation to change our world for the better. Together, we can make a difference. We invite you to invest and join the Electric Flying Connection to boost the aviation industry in the Netherlands and contribute to a healthy future.
I think this statement of cooperation is the key thing. That's what we basically did more than 10 years ago when ELAAD was also founded and the Formula E team was initiated. cooperation between parties, public-private partnerships, has led to the situation that in the Netherlands we created about 7,000 jobs in electric mobility. And we have set the standard, the worldwide standard for electric charging. And we hope that we can do the same for electric aviation. I think my time is over, so I will end up with my last slide. And thank you for your attention. Baerte, the floor is yours again.
I know you're quite on time and you have to leave. But
No, this time I could stay. My other meeting was cancelled, so I'm looking forward to all the talks this afternoon.
Yeah, so everybody online and later on have some ideas for a question. For me, this is in reach. One small question: what do you expect of the new government? We have elections in November.
Yeah.
Next year, European Parliament.
Yes.
What is needed by the Dutch government or the European Commission to make this a success?
I would suggest to not lower the taxes on fossil fuels, but to increase them again, and to put that into innovation.
Okay.
And I would suggest to all people to very sensible put their vote.
Perfect. So you're responsible as well. Thank you very much. See you later on in the panel. Now I would like to announce our next speaker, Mrs. Jolanda Stevens, who works at KLM, a large Dutch airliner, and you're responsible for electric aviation. The floor is yours.
Yeah? That's it. There I am. I would like to add a little bit to that, because I'm not responsible within KLM for electric aviation. I'm responsible for zero-emission aviation, which is a nuance that I would like to add. So, good afternoon to you all. Some familiar faces in the crowd. And very good to see you all here. I'm very happy to get the opportunity to be here with you today, as we are doing something which is really important, which is talking to each other across the sectors, to step out of our own sector and get into another sector. And I think that is the key, that we really need to step into a new future. First of all, I would like to tell a little bit about myself. I was not supposed to be here today. I was going to present to you online, so that's why I added a picture, because I thought you can hardly see me then, but now it will be here as well. I'm living in Amsterdam, very happily, for quite some time. Enjoy the city, together with my husband. He used to be an airline pilot with Transavia. His name is Egbert. And of course, I also have a lovely dog. He's very cute. Or she, I should say. We really enjoy the city, and we also enjoy the outside life. I've been living there because, of course, I was working for KLM, one of my other loves in my life, since I have been working there for now 27 years. Which is a fundamental part of my life. And I used to be, in the first 25 years of that, an airline pilot. So being very happy in a very beautiful job, I can say. But also I have a life after being a pilot, which I am very happy in right now. Because at this moment, enjoying all these elements together, doing that a lot of times in the island of Texel. We have two houses, one in Amsterdam, but also a very tiny house in Texel. And I must say, there's a lot of fulfillment in being in nature. And the reason why I bother you with all these personal elements is my personality, of course, is built up from certain aspects, certain drivers, which are very important to me. And if I look at what I'm doing today, working for KLM, which is under a big scrutiny from the public, for being a carbon industry, and all the climate change that we are facing clearly, which I also see every day. For me also, it's very important to have a strong voice in this debate, but even better, to work on this solution together for the company that I love, but also the way that I love nature. So that's why I wanted to add this to start off with. If you cannot see it, you cannot be it. When I was a small girl and I wanted to be a pilot, it's very important that you know role models, or else you will never choose what you want to become. Maybe you know this for yourself in your work or in your personal life. And if I talk about a cleaner form of aviation, and if I'm trying to build a program within KLM, I've been working on this for 1.5 years now, and I can tell you it's really something different within the whole company. And if you want to convince your board that we have to do something different than what we did today, then there's only one way that you can really convince them, and that's not by telling them, but making them feel. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to make them feel what it was like, not to think about new forms of aviation, but to really experience it. And there's only one place where we can do that, and Merlijn is also in the room. And he's going to talk to you about it later, but in the E-Flight Academy at Teugen. There he is. In the E-Flight Academy in Teugen, there we can fly the Pipistrel. So I thought, okay, that's great. Let's have a workshop about zero-emission aviation, but let's do it at Teugen. And then also, please come with me and we will make a flight. So the picture that you're looking at is a part of our executive committee looking up at the Pipistrel flying with our CEO in it. And this day was really very good, not only for me, because of course I was very happy that I could take them along on the journey that I am believing in and I'm working on, but also for them, because what I really noticed, there was a very big change in sentiment after this day, and a lot of support. So that's a very important driver to start off with. But of course there are many more. I don't have to tell you about the political area because everybody's reading the papers nowadays. Also the social debates, so the society is demanding of us why we have to do this. Emissions, that's a no-brainer, I should say. Our employees, of course. We have a lot of young people joining our company and they won't take no for an answer. And of course, I totally agree with them. We have to change. I think we can also earn some money there in the end. People really make tough choices nowadays, also with Scope 3 emissions. We have the Schiphol hub. I also don't have to say anything about that, I think. So there's a lot of things going on, but there are some things I want to point out here especially. We have the future of mobility. I think Maarten already talked to you a little bit about the different combinations. What is clean, what is not, when is it clean and when is it not. We should really take a look at that. So the whole future of mobility, we are at a new era of combinations of intermodality, which I think is going to give us new solutions. And we need some vision there. We have a corporate responsibility as KLM. We have an old brand. We are here for 104 years. A strong brand also coming along with a lot of credibility. And there are some new startups who have a lot of good ideas, but maybe don't have the credibility yet. So how are we going to combine these two so we can help new startups or new companies or new movements with our name and our expertise? I think we have a responsibility there. We take that very seriously. But the main thing in this picture here is, of course, in the heart of it, and that's pioneering sustainable aviation. If I look at KLM, and I have been looking at KLM very closely for 27 years, but before that, when I was small, I always thought of the pioneering spirit, because we all know the old movies with Plesman and also Anthony Fokker, and what's happened here in the Dutch ecosystem, which is really remarkable if you take a look at what it was once. It was nothing, and they built it up from nothing in these 100 over years. And I think this pioneering spirit is going to be needed again. So we should not forget the fact that we have that in us as KLM, as Holland, as Dutch people, and we should harvest that again. So that's a very important one. What I'm doing all day, I've been set up with a goal, of course. KLM is really eager to look at the new forms of aviation, meaning hydrogen, meaning battery electric. So we have not chosen one path. I don't believe there's only one path. I think, together with sustainable aircraft fuels, we need all the solutions together to be able to decarbonize aviation. So all the three technology tracks we need to take seriously, and we really need to help them. And in looking at our future, we say, okay, what we want to do is we want to step in. We have to step in, maybe, possibly, we should be stepping in smaller than we do now. The technology, new technologies will be smaller than what we have now. It will not be a 737. Maarten already pointed that out. So if we want to step in, it should be smaller. And how are we going to do that? So we're thinking about this, and we're really looking at stepping in a different level. And of course, eventually, the second goal, very important, we have to replace our current fleet in order to get our decarbonation goals going. So this is what we are working on with the team every day. And there's a lot of prospect in the market. There's a different kind of ways where you can look at new forms of technology if you look at aircraft. You can either build a new aircraft, or you can start from an old one. And if you have a retrofit, that's what we call it, an old aircraft, but you just put a new power line in it, new powertrain, then that could be maybe a little bit easier getting into the market, because certification will then maybe a little bit easier. But optimization of the aircraft will ask for new aircraft design. So what you see here on the left-hand side is Ampere, which is a company from the US, retrofitting existing aircraft with hybrid solutions. On the right-hand side, we have Hard Aerospace, which is building a new aircraft, also hybrid, but new aircraft design. On the lower left side, you can see Zero Avia, who is building from an existing aircraft a hydrogen solution. So they're building in a hydrogen powertrain. And on the right, you see also Airbus working on hydrogen, new aircraft design. And of course, I'm leaving out, I think, 276 OEMs. So I know one here in the room who will say, that's me. And a lot of them online maybe. So there are so many new technologies and so many new OEMs, which is intriguing. And we should really be open to all these new solutions, talk to them, and find out what we can do to help. So what do we see as a potential? The potential for the coming years, I will be quick. This is a graph which you don't really want to look at too long. But if you look at the icons, you can see it really straight. It's going to start small, obviously, growing bigger over time. And we will have some different entry into service dates which we expect if we look at the different technologies. And what we expect, and I think Maarten already mentioned, first you will see the coming up of the hybrid solutions, maybe quickly followed by some technical solutions, starting small, getting a little bit bigger, and then I think towards the end of the 20s we will slowly see also the hydrogen aircraft, but then the hydrogen who will be electric. So hydrogen electric, that means we will use a fuel cell for electricity generation on board the aircraft. And slowly but surely, if it works, this is all crystal ball, so please don't take me up on anything that I say here today, it's all disclaimer. What we think is that halfway the 30s, we also see hydrogen combustion coming up. So there's a big development going on. And the only thing that's very important to know here is that we are not alone. We are just an operator. We are not building aircraft. We are just a very small part in this value chain. And the OEMs that we were just zooming in on a little bit, they are also a part of the value chain. But as are the airports, as are the legislators, as are the ground operations. There are so many pieces of the puzzle. And all the pieces of the puzzle have to come to maturity if we want to step into this new future. So this is the biggest challenge that we have, I believe. And that means that we need to collaborate. I will get back to that later. We are working at this moment on a feasibility study. Don't look at the details, it's very boring. But we're making a lot of analysis, of course, of what is going on at the moment around us, what is affecting us, what do we have to take in as a factor if we build our plans for the future. And from this result, in the end, a couple of recommendations to our board. What kind of scenarios, what kind of storylines do we see coming into maturity for the next 15 years? So what recommendations, what can we choose? This is what we are working on, so that we as KLM, we can have a path, we can choose a path, and of course then still there's a lot of uncertainty. If you step on the path, you always have to revalidate every time. And if I get back to that value chain, which you already saw before, how do we activate this value chain? And the thing that we can do, and what we are doing very actively today, we are studying, of course, and we are talking, and we are working together. We have certain parties that we work very intensely with, and that's very good. That's great. It's a great start. But why don't we just do something? We can all talk and we all study, but think back to Teugen, to my board, when I said, well, they have to feel it. I think also in the public eye, we need to feel it, right? We have to see it. If you cannot see it, you cannot be it. So what do? And we said, okay, well, let's do something together. Let's try a nice initiative. And this initiative was not of us. We just stepped in as an operator. This initiative was from the Electric Flying Connection. Maarten already mentioned this to you. The collective, which we are also a member of. And they came up with the idea to make a flying tour. A flying tour between two city pairs, totally electric. Let's just do it. And we said, you know what? Let's just do it. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to choose two city pairs. Well, we chose Amsterdam. We chose Lelystad Airport. We said, okay, well, let's make a flight there with, of course, then the Pipistrel, because the Pipistrel is the only one that's fully electric. We're going to build 2 pop-up lounges there. Must be KLM, right? Hey, we need some stewardesses there, and we have to make a nice look and feel. And if we bring the people somewhere from A to B, either to Lelystad or the other way around. But of course, we also have to get them back to their own, where they started. So we take care of an electric vehicle. So let's just do this together. KLM and EFC, of course, we as partners in crime, we started this off. But a lot of other parties were connected to this. And of course, at first it was E-Flight and Energy to Fly. They have a very prominent factor in this because of the loading infrastructure and the aircraft, obviously. But also other parties in the vicinity of the lounges or in air traffic control, Audi for the cars. And what I noticed, when we started doing this, it's very nice to see, not only, of course, that we had 2 great days. It was absolutely marvelous because the weather was good. The people who were guests with us, so we had 18 guests, were all very enthusiastic and a little bit anxious at first. But when they came out of the flight, they were all over-enthusiastic. So it was a great event. But that's not enough, right? What the great thing about it was, for me, is to see that all these parties that you see here, and there were many more, they all needed to think, okay, we're going to do an electric flight. Oh my God. The charging is not sufficient. We have to change the charging. Okay, but they're flying slowly. We need new arrival routes. Okay, so everybody had to think, they had to start and think, and now they needed to think for this event, and that is just fine, and it was big fun. But I hope that this also does something with them for the future. And that the thinking about what can we do next, I have to evolve myself, what is my own process, and what do I have to learn from this, that we made a small start together with that. And that's the oil vlek, the oil spill. This is a Dutch saying, it's very, very awkward in English, let's not go there. That is going to be a happy place where we can all start working together. Small steps. So we have to think big, that's what we are doing at KLM, but we have to start small. So that was what I would wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Jolanda. The snowball effect of electric aviation. Yeah, thank you very much. Before I announce another speaker, my same question. Elections in November, but also next year for the European Parliament. What does your company need from government to speed this up, to make it a success?
I think there are so many factors involved, since the future is complicated. There are so many different drivers underneath this topic alone. let alone the whole thing that we are doing besides that. So we are, of course, in the business of aviation every day, and this is a future game. So if we're only talking about the future game, I think we should be very keen about the level playing field that we have to create. Because if we don't help the parties, not only operators, but all the parties concerned, and we just saw a small selection of them, who are trying to innovate, then the ones that won't innovate and don't lose money, don't take any risk, they will win, right? Because it's a tough game, it's difficult. So I think we have to stimulate the ones who are willing to go.
Thank you very much. So Maarten Steinbuch was on innovation and fossil fuels. You're on level playing field. Thank you very much. Jolanda Stevens from KLM. Our next speaker, Jan Willem, you're up.
Yes.
The one who's making an electric aircraft. Jan Willem Heinen from Maeve. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me see if my clicker works. Is it working? Oh, this is not that sharp, but we'll give it a go. Well, first of all, thank you very much for your time. My name is Jan Willem Heinen. I am co-founder and currently CEO at Maeve. What I'm going to try to do is bridge perhaps a little bit between Maarten and Jolanda, and then set the stage for where we are, which is Elaad. So as said, I'm a co-founder and CEO at Maeve. And at Maeve, we started in 2021 with the objective to reduce the climate impact of aviation as soon as possible. We started in regional aviation. And why? Because we believe that in regional aviation, you can make a technology impact. And this is an excellent example of a regional aviation route. So this is Bergen-Oslo. It will take you 7 hours by train. It will take you 45 minutes by plane. So it's quite clear that this is a route that you want to do by an aircraft, but you also want to do it sustainable. Regional aviation is about 10% of all the aviation industry. So if you can make regional aviation sustainable, you can really make an impact. So we started in 2021 with Maeve, built the founding team. In 2022, we raised 3.2 million. That allowed us to build a team and to build an aircraft. And April of 2023, which is 13 months later, we had the team and we had the first aircraft design. And we unveiled Maeve 1 at the Fokker terminal in The Hague. And we really did our research there. We've also, in the meantime, between April and June, we did a new release of the aircraft. We've further optimized it. And this is her, Maeve 1. So Maeve 1 is a 44-seat, all-electric aircraft with 250 nautical miles, but that's 460 kilometers. So given the capital that we've spent and the team that we have, I guess you could say that we're in a position to predict what is possible in terms of electrified flight and what's impossible. And I would like to share that view with you. So I tried to give you 4 predictions into the future, which will kind of fit into what Jolanda has mentioned and what Maarten has mentioned. But it starts with this. It's basically a graph of the different missions that you want to fly with an aircraft versus the technology that you can use. So you see that on the x-axis, we have the distance that you want to fly, and on the y-axis, the number of passengers or payload that you want to fly. Now you see 3 different segments, basically. They're all 3 different technologies, but you could also say it's large aviation, and it's small regional aviation, and it's larger regional aviation. And I would like to zoom in on all these 3 categories and see if we can dissect it a bit. So let's take the mainstream aviation, the big ones, the 100 plus passengers and the 1,000 nautical mile plus, which is 1,800 kilometers plus aircraft. It's these type of aircraft. Our CTO, Martin Nussler, was one of the lead developers of the Airbus A350. This aircraft weighs 224,000 kilograms at takeoff. It can carry hundreds of passengers, and I took this from the Airbus website, it's advertised for 9,700 nautical miles of range, 15,000 kilometers. It's quite clear that these aircrafts are very hard to electrify. In fact, it's very hard to do anything else with this aircraft but to power it with fuels. And so going back to this mission, there's a certain area in this mission graph of aviation where you can only fly on sustainable or on fuels. But let's not do it on fuels that are fossil fuels, let's do it on sustainable fuels. So my first prediction is that for the mainstream aviation, and we're talking generally 100 plus passengers, 1,000 nautical miles plus, the aviation will still happen at the aircraft because Airbus and Boeing are still pushing towards making more efficient aircraft, but the aviation will predominantly happen at the fuel side. So we're looking at replacements of fuels that emit zero CO2. Now let's take a look at what's much closer to our reality right now, and also where Merlijn and E-Flight is. That's a smaller regional aviation. So we're talking about the general aviation, urban air mobility, etc. So this is the red square. Less than 50 or 200 nautical miles, less than 90 passengers, etc. Also there you can dissect perhaps different categories. So if we're taking a look at the first category, which is the trainer and leisure, it's 2 to 4 passengers. This sector will definitely become all electric rather soon, within this decade. But we want to do more. We want to proceed towards, say, 8 or 9 aircraft. And even there, also, you'll already see quite credible parties building 9-seaters. So the 9-seat will happen. Then you have another category, which is the 19-seat aircraft. And there's a distinct problem, because a 19-seater aircraft cannot weigh more than 8,618 kilograms in the CS23 class. Basically, if you weigh more than that, your certification becomes much more difficult and your business case disappears. So rounded up, if I look at these categories, I would say my prediction is that all-electric aircraft with up to 9 seats will happen before 2030. All right, now let's take a look at where it gets really, really exciting, because Jolanda and KLM are not flying with 9-seaters, not flying with 2-seaters, flying with 88 seats normal. So that what you could call the larger regional aviation. It's also called CS25, and CS25 means the highest certification class in aviation, which is also the most expensive to build. It's there. We are at the blue item, actually. Now, in the larger regional aviation class, you also have 3 distinct classes. You have, sub 30 seat, but that's already a bit CS23. You got the 30 seat, the 50 seat, and the 80 seat classes. Now, of course, that's fluid. You also have the 100 seat classes, but generally speaking, you're looking at this. And also there you see credible parties building aircraft, amongst which, for example, Hard Aerospace building the 30-seater. We have been, for the past 1.5 years, building the 44-seat aircraft, Maeve 01, which is really pushing what we could do with all-electric aviation. But we could definitely see that all of these categories could be hybrid electric also. And then you end up with the last segment, and there also I see hybrid electrification possible. So my third prediction is, by the way, why would you build a hybrid electric aircraft? Because we are here at the temple of electrification. We are here at Elaad. We want to drive electric. Well, hybrid electric aircrafts do pose an advantage. First of all, if you have a hybrid electric aircraft, you can still electrify parts of your mission. When you do fly on fuel, generally speaking, a hybrid electric aircraft has less fuel consumption. And when you do use fuels, please use power-to-liquid fuels. And then a hybrid electric aircraft makes a lot of sense. So, to my prediction, hybrid electric aircraft will play a role in sustainable aviation at the start of the next decade in the larger regional class. But we are here at ElaadNL. We are here talking charging cars and kilowatt hours and kilowatts. So I really wanted to add that perspective too, because I think it resonates to the people here. Let's start charging. So here I took an overview of all the different categories, and I did my desktop research. So I took the latest notes of all these different producers and see how much kilowatt hours they advertise with, and what their charging time is. Because if you want to charge a certain amount of kilowatt hours in a certain amount of time, you will get a charging speed. And when I did this, I was also a bit interested and puzzled myself. But what you see is that what will happen, because we've just predicted that before the end of the decade, you can already see that there's quite high charging power required if you want to do charging within 60 minutes. So if you take a look at a 9-seater aircraft, it will have a battery which is somewhere between 500 and 800 kilowatt hours. If you want to recharge that in 30 minutes, there you go, 800 kilowatts of charging requirement. If you take a look at the larger categories, then something interesting happens because you can have different configurations. To the start, you see a battery or a large battery hybrid aircraft. Here you see a 44-seat all-electric aircraft. And to the right, you see an aircraft which has not been unveiled yet, which is a lighter hybrid 80-seat aircraft. So here you see what's happening. If you have the bigger classes, if you have a large battery hybrid aircraft, the charging requirement is about 3 megawatts. If you have a large battery electric aircraft, the charging requirement goes up even more. It's about 4,500 kilowatts or 4.5 megawatts. If you go into a lighter battery hybrid aircraft, which still makes sense, which is in the 80-seat category, which is an aircraft which a lot of airlines will fly, and not just in Europe, but also in the US and also in Asia and also in Australia, you're talking about 1,500 or 1.5 megawatts of charging. And that really comes close to what we're used to at our friends at Milens here, because Milens is a company that is sort of the Fastnet for trucks. The charging speeds advertised there are about 1 megawatt. So we can see that, yes, there is some sort of comparison between electric flight, hybrid electric flight, and the charging that's happening at trucks. Those are the similarities. So my fourth prediction is both all-electric and hybrid electric aircraft require megawatt-sized charging infrastructure starting from the end of this decade. So ElaadNL, you better get going. And with that, I would like to leave it at that, but I would also like to add a personal note. Because since this month, it's been my 31st month of aviation. I used to be in the charging infrastructure industry. I used to have startups in charging infrastructure. And since I entered the aviation industry, I've seen a lot happening because I've been talking to international customers. And what I've noticed is that the pressure to do something with climate change or to do something against climate change in Europe is very high. And in the rest of the world, not so much. Airlines are not that much interested in the rest of the world into sustainable aviation. Europe is leading in aerospace. Airbus and all its suppliers are here in Europe, and we are leading the aerospace industry. And the last one is, Europe is well positioned to lead the way towards sustainable aviation. So my personal call on everybody here is, sustainable aviation, we can do it. We can do it here in Europe. It makes sense for our economy, and it makes sense for sustainability. Let's take that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Applause. Thanks. And then you know what my question is. What should Europe do? What next year, elections for European Parliament?
We have to incentivize low carbon, and we have to penalize high carbon. And that will create a level playing field, because one airline that wants to do sustainability can't do it by herself. She will be outcompeted by the airlines who then don't take action. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See some similarities. Fossil fuels, level playing field. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you later on the panel discussion.
Thanks.
Now the last speaker, home turf for my colleague Lonneke Driessen. She's director of the Open Charge Alliance, and she's responsible for the standard of charging electric vehicles. But what are you going to do with aviation, Lonneke?
Yes, thank you, Baerte. Yes, that's mine. Yeah. Oh, no, just the one. Yes, so thank you, Baerte. So my name is Lonneke Driessen, and I'm the director of the Open Charge Alliance, and I will do a brief introduction for those of you who are not yet familiar with OCA. It was already mentioned back in 2009. Here at ELAAD, we started with our journey on electrification of transportation, starting with passenger cars, buses, etc. One of the first things that ELAAD realized was that if we want this industry to succeed, we need a lot of players, a lot of competition, a lot of innovation, because we need all these clever minds to come up with good solutions to make this market move forward, lower prices, and also be able to scale. So 14 years later, actually, one of the great successes that globally we've been able to achieve is help the industry develop with a standard. And that standard is OCPP, Open Charge Point Protocol. It's not rocket science, but basically what it enables is for charging infrastructure rollout to mix and match between different parties and provide the best and cheapest and most innovative charging solutions to EV drivers. Now, of course, when charging of electric vehicles started, there were a lot of non-believers and the market was really very small. But look at where we are now, and currently OCPP has been downloaded to more than 100,000 individual IP addresses globally to more than 150 countries. So that means that in 150 countries there are people downloading the protocol and getting inspired, hopefully, to start developing drone charging infrastructure. I think that there is a similar opportunity for aviation, of course, because all these aircraft, when they use a battery, they will need to be charged. And what we've seen in the pictures, they will need to be charged at different locations, from different operators, different technology providers. So here again, we foresee that this industry will benefit from a lot of parties, a lot of companies, a lot of players, a lot of brilliant minds coming up with great solutions. Some will fail, some will be able to develop into large-scale solutions. So to help with this, what we'd like to announce today is that within the Open Charge Alliance, where we have more than 300 companies working on new features for the protocol, that we will be starting a new group which is solely focused on how can we use OCPP for aircraft charging. So you already saw in the slide of Maeve that the charging plug, of course, we can reuse a lot what we have for trucks and for larger road vehicles, but also OCPP, probably a lot of the features that we already have implemented, we can reuse for the charging at airfields. But you never know, and that's why we are really looking forward to work together with all the innovators in this industry to learn what are the use cases, what are the needs, and how does basically an airfield work. So how do things work when you stop and refuel an aircraft? And we'll be starting as of now. Anybody who's interested to join and help on the discussion, please let us know. And yeah, we're looking forward to supporting the electrification of aircraft also with the same enthusiasm and passion that we've done over the past decade into the next decade. Thank you.
Of course, you know my last question before we start the panel. What could Europe do to help standardization in aviation or the Dutch Parliament in November?
Sure. What I'd like to say to the European Commission, I would say listen to the industry. I think the industry know best, and I specifically mean the upcoming industry, the startups, the new companies. There is always, of course, a lobby from existing companies, and they have good stories, and they are always right. But I think it's really important, because we've learned in the past that when you're big, they listen, and when you're small and new, you know, sometimes it's difficult to get their ear. But that's what I would say. Listen to this startup industry, listen to these new players, and really listen to them.
Thank you very much. May I ask Jolanda, Maarten, please stay at the stand, Lonneke, and Jan Willem to do a brief panel discussion. If you're following it online, we have an open channel with the chat, so state your questions. But I think the audience here might also have some questions. Raise your hand if you have one. Yes, the gentleman here to the microphone is coming. Who are you and which company do you represent? Communication room, please.
Yeah, how you doing? Jan Bosley, I'm working with Jolanda and I know the company as well. The question was about the kilowatt hours you presented and the charging times. When I take these charging times and the kilowatt hours don't fit, what's the trick behind it?
The trick behind, oh, sorry. Yes, what's the trick behind it is I took two additional parameters which I did not show in this. One of them is that an aircraft will never land with 0% state of charge.
Okay.
And it will, in a commercial setting, will also try to avoid charging to 100%. Because the degradation of your battery becomes so prohibitive that it becomes uneconomical. So if you take that into account, then yes. Also, I've taken into account the C rates. I think 1.5 C is something that is still respectable and okay to do. And then you end up with the values that I've been giving you. Yeah. Still, it's an estimate, because you have to talk to, I'm only one of the OEMs in here, and there's other ones, and there's products that not exist yet. So the specifications may still change, but what I wanted to give is a good overview of what it might be.
Okay,
it won't be double, at least. That's what we can see.
Okay. The other question to all of them: what do you expect that the charging voltage will be? How do I say that? Lelystad has now an 800 volt DC grid. Yeah, you can use for charging, but the next step is maybe 1250 volts or even higher. Yeah.
So all the batteries, he as an OEM is going to be as a disposable after 2 years of flying. They can all be installed as stationary batteries at the local charging hubs. So I strongly believe in energy hubs. So with stationary batteries, providing enough power, instant power to charge planes, and then on a more average scale, 24.
That's the reuse, but I did ask about the charging voltage.
The charging
you have
voltage.
to get in that amount of power in a short time over a cable that should be manageable.
Okay, but that's about the charging. So between
voltage, 1600 volt, 800 volts.
Oh, okay. Now I understand the question. Is that a question for an OEM?
Yeah, so if you take a look at DC board voltages in your aircraft, it sounds like really a good idea to go to very high voltages, but it's actually a bad idea. So you end up with about 1000 volts. But this is specifications that we are still working through. But this is almost where we are looking at. Again, I don't expect these voltages to differ so much from a 2030 truck.
Yeah, that's about 1250 volts, I expect.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Celine, you see another question.
Hi, I'm Volkert from Fastnet. My question is a personal one, though. It's for Jolanda. short distances, we can take electric cars, we can take trains. Middle range, we're talking about middle range electric aircraft. That leaves long haul flight. And as Maarten also talked about, for the foreseeable future, we're stuck with sustainable air fuels. And I like KLM's program that you can actually pay a little bit extra and then fund the sustainable air fuels. I like that program. It soothes my conscience a little bit when I fly transatlantic. But what I don't like is that there's no distinction between what kind of sustainable air fuel. Is it basically refined, spent air, frying oil, or is it actual captured from air? And what I would like is to have a distinction. I see that more often, SEF as one category. It would be really nice, also for consumers, for travelers, to have a distinction between the bio-sustainable air fuels and the power to fuel sustainable air fuels. Could you maybe improve that in your campaigns?
Yeah, I just wanted to check if it worked. Yeah, well, that's a very good question, and I can totally understand why you want this to be more clear. I think sustainable aircraft fuel is something that we are working on very how should I say that? Intensely, thank you. Sometimes looking for the English words. We're working on that intensely, and there are so many different ways in which you can get this feedstock or base from which you are making the sustainable aircraft fuel. So I think that's a topic in itself, which is not on in my program. So I know some about it, but not everything. However, of course, I can understand your wish as a consumer and as a passenger or a client in this case, to be a little bit more at the steering wheel of what you're buying, because that's what I sense here. So yeah, duly noted, and I think some room for improvement there.
To the best of my knowledge, I think all sustainable air fuels which is being used now is biofuels. Is that correct? Right. So I think you cannot expect before 2030 or 2035 to have in large quantities real solar fuels. So it's all bio. Small. The biggest problem is to build with low cost a machine which can take CO2 out of the air in an affordable way. That's the biggest challenge. I mean, electrolyzers, of course, that's also a challenge. But the biggest one, I mean, if you now count the whole capital you need, it's about €7 per liter kerosene. €7. And I think KLM buys it now for 30 euro cent or 50 euro cent. So it's now €7. So there needs to be a development of about 10 to 15 years, especially on the CO2 side, to get it in a scalable form out of the air. That's the key thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. An interesting combination, Fastnet and KLM. So that might be an innovation. Room for a last question before we hit the break. Yeah, 2 questions.
Hello, I'm Rick. Some might know me as your ex-colleague here at ELAAD. I hear a lot about passenger aircraft, but what about heavy freight aircraft? Because most of them are still consisting of 747s or other heavy planes. Do you see them on the same, let's say 2050, the same timeline? Do you see a heavy change there, or what kind of role do you see for electrifying that fleet on that same term?
You're right. It's not only about passenger business, it's also about cargo business, or in our case also engineering and maintenance, so the MRO business. So there are many ways in which you can look at this topic, and especially cargo is also a very interesting one. If you look at the development technology, then there's one thing which is very prominent, the challenge for the coming years, and that's the weight. So the weight of passenger aircraft with electric batteries, the same problem goes, of course, for the cargo aircraft. So if you wanna make use of electric aviation in cargo business, then it should be about very light, very niche product cargo. So at KLM, of course, we're also looking at that with our cargo division. But you really have to take care of what problem are we solving here? Because if we are able to distribute our very light packages over the roads with sustainable road transport, then we should never aim at an electric solution through the air, because then we would doing it for the wrong reasons. So we always take cargo in the back of our minds, and of course always if we see a solution there for sustainable cargo, then that will definitely be our case. But for now, yeah, given the two, so especially the weight issue, it's not really in sight yet. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Then over there, the gentleman in the green shirt has the last question for this block.
Yes, Maarten Brey. Maybe a quick question on your position on battery swapping to reduce or minimize idle times, or maybe also help charging power.
So ideally what you want is a turnaround time of 35 minutes. That's the time that you require to get all the passengers out, all the passengers in, etc. If you take a look at the state of charge window that you're basically in, it's quite feasible to recharge these aircraft with a normal fast charging infrastructure. That said, integrating a battery into a large-scale airframe is a very big challenge. And the big challenge is the crash that you have. So you have to crash your aircraft without your landing gear out on the ground. And the passengers must endure exactly the right G-loads. Otherwise you kill your passengers or you burn your batteries. And so if you see that challenge of integrating such a high-tech battery technology into your airframe, then adding the requirement of fast swapping them makes this aircraft impossible to design.
Thanks.
And also for cars, by the way, it's a stupid idea, but okay.
With that closing remark for the first half of this mini-conference on electric aviation, there's a small break. In the Caribbean, if you're online, have a cocktail while it's early in the morning. Have a cup of coffee. We'll continue in a few minutes. Thank you.
unmuted. Saquité of the basic bueno, te escuchamos.
Hij staat er. Even zeggen tegen Martijn. Nee, hij staat niet aan inderdaad.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a minute or two we'll continue with our conference. Finish your drink, visit the restroom, and in a minute or two we'll continue. Moet ik? Ja, dan moet je, als jij de eerste rij eventjes wat mensen daar neerzet. Ja. Maar moet je even een paar collega's vooral pakken. Van, Already the next speaker has its slide on the screen. Felix, if you can switch on your camera, we also can see you. In 1 minute, we're going to start. Gewoon lekker. Corine, gaan we lekker vooraan zitten. Ziet er op de camera beter uit. Thank you very much. This is the second part of this conference on aviation, electric aviation. And this second part will focus a bit more on specific use cases. In the last part, we concluded we should, in the long term, ban fossil fuels, create a level playing field, do a lot of innovation. But how could we apply that? And our first speaker in the second part is not here, physical in Arnhem, but online in the Dutch Caribbean. Felix Schreven. Felix, the floor is yours. Can you see us? Yes, Felix. Felix Schreven, I understood you are on the island of Bonaire and you work at a hospital, but you're very involved into electric aviation in the Dutch Caribbean. Can I give you the floor? Maarten, maybe you can text Felix that he can do his presentation. Yeah. Felix, you're up to. You're on. Felix, I just introduced you. You're not here with us in Arnhem. We're in a small conference on electric aviation. You're on the island of Bonaire. And maybe you can explain a little bit what you're doing, because I understood you were at Mariendal Hospital. But why is that relevant for electric aviation? Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Let me clarify that a little bit, maybe not the most common link, but the past years we've developed a roadmap in electric flying, and this presentation gives a little bit of insight on how we organize this. Why is it not moving? Yeah. As you said, I am located on Bonaire. Bonaire is one of the 3 BESS islands, as you might know, which is directly linked to the Dutch Kingdom. Important to know for you guys is that Bonaire is a blue destination, which means that we develop our island, and this also goes for Fundación Mariedal, develop our services with nature, culture, and economy in balance. We try not to disturb and make a major impact on our environment in developing our services for the future. Just to give you an idea is that Bonaire itself has 23,000 inhabitants, and via air we have about 173,000 tourists coming in. This is not accounted with the cruise tourism. If we add that on, we come easily to 400,000 tourists on this small island with only 23,000 inhabitants. Important to know is also that our local energy company has the vision by 2025 to have all the energy produced on the island 80% by renewable sources. The energy mix on our island will then be with wind, solar, and a little bit of diesel as backup in case we do not have enough wind or do not have enough sun. How strange that actually might seem, but we also sometimes do not have sun here. Fundación Mariedal, as you explained, Fundación Mariedal is a healthcare organization. And Fundación Mariedal has 3 divisions, which is a hospital, elderly home, and home care as the 3 main businesses. We have a twinning or a cooperation with the Amsterdam University Medical Center, And for the past 11 or 12 years so, we have rotations by medical specialists that are coming to Bonaire. And even though we are on Bonaire with such a small community, we do have available 18 medical specializations which provide secondary healthcare on Bonaire. But if this is not sufficient and we need tertiary healthcare, we can go to Aruba, Curacao, Colombia, and the Netherlands. It's about a 50,000 square meter facility with about 600 people working there 24/7. Just as the Dutch Caribbean Corporation of Airports, we also have a Dutch Caribbean Hospital Alliance, which combines all the services of the hospitals in Curaçao, Aruba, Sint Maarten, and Bonaire in one alliance. And Fundación Maridal is the only air ambulance provider for this region, and it also has its ambulance services included. So this is our first hint into why Fundación Maridal is linked to aviation. Our air ambulance operations, we are already performing since 2012 as part of the Netherlands. The Ministry of Health told us that we always need to secure that people that are needed in acute care anywhere else than Bonaire, we need to bring them as soon as possible to this location. So the Fundación Maridal Air Ambulance Services has a service area which covers the complete Dutch Caribbean and Colombia. This is the range that we are flying. We use a fleet of Learjets 31, 35, and 45, but also have, through an alliance with a partner in Colombia, access to Jetstream aircraft, depending on the volume that we have. Normally you would think, well, why so many aircraft? Just for your recollection, in 2017, we had Hurricane Irma and Maria hit Sint Maarten, and we performed an air bridge for at least 8 weeks in traveling back and forth patients from Sint Maarten to Aruba, Curacao, and Colombia. We also did this during COVID, and then you will see that one aircraft is not sufficient, so we have a different fleet configuration depending on the way we need the aircraft. It's 24/7 available. We do approximately 280 flights yearly, but 60% of those routes are only between the ABC islands. So coming back to why are we involved, in 2020, the Ministry of Aviation launched a challenge on how can we improve or start up the electric flying between 3 ABC islands. On Bonaire, we have one of the very few aviation technical schools that provides education for young mechanics that are going into MRO services. And I was invited with them because of our link with the air ambulance to see what this challenge was about. And all during the time after that, we also worked with them in making this challenge work and make a proposal that we entered and submit as part of the challenge. And Bonaire won this challenge. Very nice reward for us for that our plan has worked. But they said, well, what is next? They said, well, let's try to realize this and have this first hybrid electric air ambulance in the world. Because to my knowledge, there is no other aircraft yet being configured as an air ambulance aircraft. At the time, we looked through documentation and studies, and we came in contact with the company Ampere, and we developed, or they already developed the eco-order, and we went through the figures and the project to make a use case based on the eco-order to fly between the 3 ABC islands, since 60% of our transport is in between these 3 islands. This use case has also been included in the main policy of electric flight that was made by Ministry of Infrastructure and Waterways and NACO. And from there on, we actually got more grip in getting this project across. What we did is on Bonaire, and also is mentioned in the policy that there are a lot of stakeholders involved. So we actually built 3 pillars for our use case, which is based on energy, aviation, and healthcare. And these are the Water and Energy Company, the Bonaire International Airport, and Fundación Mariedal. And we assembled lots of other stakeholders on Bonaire around it and started just by storytelling and explaining on what this would be for impact on them if Fundación Mariedal would start flying and using electric air-ambulance aircraft. This has resulted in numerous meetings and exchange of information. And right now it's been widely accepted on Bonaire that this is a project for the future. During that time, I also got in contact with the chair of the DCCA, and we kept having contact regularly in exchanging and sharing knowledge and information, since this is such a new technology that if everybody starts doing their own thing and do not combine their efforts, then it's going to be very difficult to get the electric flying between the ABC islands going. So from the start, and also with the conference of the DCCA last year in Aruba, we directly contacted them and they contacted us. And since then, we've been exchanging information very frequently and having meet each other either on the islands or, as in coming November, in Curacao for the next conference. Like I said, networking is a very important action that we needed to do, because a new ecosystem evolves of partners that maybe normally not are in contact with each other. We've had so many discussions, meetings, conferences, mini-conference, work visits. In some of the pictures you see, of course, the first pioneers that started in Holland, the electric flying E-flight. They also came to Bonaire. And that was actually the first representation of the electric flying roadmap on Bonaire publicly to the community of Bonaire. Also, many new stakeholders we've met there, and over time we've kept very much in contact with each other and exchanging information on all the projects that are ongoing in the Netherlands, but also activities that are ongoing here. In the roadmap is not only the electric flying with large aircraft, but also what we call the medical drone services between the ABC islands. And this is for inter-island transport, where the drone is used as an extension of a healthcare process. Since we operate the air ambulance services, these are of course also flying doctors on board with them. These doctors are coming from the UAMC, which also fly on the trauma helicopters with the ANWB. So in 2019, we made contact with the ANWB trauma services, and we explored the opportunities of flying with a drone. And from there on, we made the project with the company Maeve to fly, or make at least a pilot project to fly between the islands. This will take place as a demonstration flight also during the conference in November on Curacao, since Bonaire does not have yet a law that permits flying with drones on Bonaire, which will be ready mid next year. Besides the use case that we've developed with Ampere, also the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, together with Ampere, has started a pilot project based on the Eco Caravan, which should result in a demonstration phase mid next year between the ABC islands. Fundación Mariedal is also taking part in this pilot project, and especially for the education part, because in our challenge proposal that we wrote as well, is the most important thing is to secure the knowledge on these islands to fly this new technology in a sustainable way and not be completely dependent on all the knowledge that is coming from either Europe or the States. So in our context, in the past year and a half, I had many conversations with DEAC on how we can link the Dutch education system to the Caribbean education system in as an extension of this new transition of aviation. It needs new updated education system and programs, which we do not have yet here on Bonaire or in the region. So if this new technology comes, we need to make sure that from the get-go, our scholars will stay on these islands and will not leave for the Netherlands and stay there, and thus preventing a brain drain from these islands and help us move forward with this new technology. As said, mid next year, most likely this will start be a project that becomes active and will be run between the ABC Islands and get great experience with having the first hybrid electric flights. Also with these new technology comes the facilities. At this moment, we do not have a facility at the airport in Bonaire with a hangar. So also based on these new sustainability policies that are being brought out either globally or in the Netherlands, but also with the new policy document that came out with the climate table for Bonaire. We started the project with the Bonaire International Airport to make a new hangar which is zero emission, but also taps into this new technology in charging electric aircraft. This is hopefully finished by the end of 2025. Negotiations are ongoing right now, also for our regular operations, and also in advance of hopefully operating the Eco-Otter in 2026 between the ABC Islands. As an extension far ahead, we've had some early discussions with Airbus on eVTOL purposes for acute care transport. Bonaire is not very habited and also does not have enough infrastructure in many ways, but tourists do go there. At this moment, certain areas are not available by ground ambulance. So we are also exploring the option of integrating a eVTOL as part of our acute care services on the island to pick up patients or bring medical help in certain places where we cannot get quick enough by car. Well, if we combine all these actions back together, we made a transition architecture on layers. So we need to do something in infrastructure. Of course, aircraft and propulsions by the OEMs will be developed. We need to develop new operations and services as air ambulance services, and everything will be more digital, not only the service that we offer, but also as a company. And this, of course, is linked to the policies that are laying on top of this and cover them, and supported by the side pillars on the policies that are being developed ongoing, or regulations, or new safety and security guidelines. Thank you for your attention. This was my presentation.
Thank you very much, Felix. Great presentation, and it's so good to see there's a real use case for electric aviation, not only for a passenger like the KLM just told us, but something very tangible on ambulances in a time of COVID and other natural disasters. My question is the same for you as to other, sorry for the audience here in Arnhem, but for the other audience or speakers. There's elections in the Netherlands in November and in Europe next year. I'm not sure when there's elections in the Caribbean, but how can politicians help you not only make this project a success, but extend it a bit?
Well, we had a great help so far by having this Bonaire climate table document, which actually states that we have to have measures for mitigation and adaptation for climate change. This is one of the examples on how we can contribute for Bonaire or the ABC region with these projects. However, and I think that's mentioned also, we need to have some form of a transition budget to get from A to B. I think we can operate them based on budgets that we have right now, but make the transition and phase out the old and get in the new. We do need some support from the political side to get this project going.
Transition budget, so we have a level playing field, ban fossil fuels or tax them at least, work on innovation and have some transition budget. If you, the audience, have some more questions, if you're online, state them in the chat. And later on, Felix will join us in a panel discussion. Thank you for now, Felix. Pleasure to meet you online. And the next speaker is Merlijn from the E-Flight Academy. You're with one foot in the Netherlands, here at Teugen, but also active in Bonaire. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Is Felix gone? I wanted to say hello to him. Hi, Felix. I visited Felix. Oh, I hear him. Hi, Felix. I visited him together with my partner, Jan, 1 year ago, because we are starting a business over there. But starting a business in the Caribbean is, can take a while, so we're still starting. But later on my presentation, I will tell you. Can my presentation come up at the screen? Hello? Yes, there I am. Hello, E-Flight fans. I suppose you are E-Flight fans. And otherwise, I hope you're an E-Flight fan after my presentation. My name is Merlijn van Vliet. I'm co-owner of E-Flight. I'm also the board member of Electric Flying Connection. And since June this year, I'm also an e-pilot. Because I got my private pilot license in my own academy, which was quite an experience. To get your pilot license together with starting up a company with electric planes. My presentation, I will do my presentation in 15 minutes and I have 90 slides, so I'm more than ready for takeoff. If you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask it. I like interaction, just raise your hand or scream or whatever and I will answer your question. We are E-Flight, we are the world's first electric flying flight academy and we started in May 2021. We believe in a world with a quiet and clean airspace where everyone can and wants to fly without any sense of shame. Or in Dutch we call it vliegschaamte. So zonder vliegschaamte. That's our mission, that's our why. I strongly believe in the golden circles of Simon Sinek, the why, the how and the what. I have a background in advertising, so that's why I love those things. So this is what we believe in and this is everything we do. We got this and then we say it out loud and then say, okay, does it fit with our vision? If it doesn't fit, we don't do it. So it's kind of, how do you say it? Like a graadmeter for everything what we do. Where do we start? We start with providing future pilots with training on today's electric planes. And it's actually one plane. We have 4 of them. But I can show you a video of a short impression of how it goes. Can you please turn the sound on? The plane is silent, but the video has sound. Oh. Can I do something here, or? I'm going to try it. Help. Ja, ik moet even deze presentatie.
Ik ga vandaag voor het eerst vliegen met een elektrisch vliegtuig. Ik ben echt heel erg benieuwd. Spannend.
Alright, nou we gaan zo lekker vliegen dus. Ik zit erbij om je te helpen en om je dingen uit te leggen. Oké, ben jij er klaar voor?
Yes.
Dan gaan we. Hoppa, en we vliegen al.
Zo, wauw. Oh, wat gaaf.
Do you hear the noise? Or actually the no noise? It's the actual sound from the cockpit. So we produce like 47 dB if we fly at 1,500 feet. And on the ground, an average city produces 50 dB. So you don't hear us. So it's pretty amazing. And it's a short impression of how it feels and look like. And I invite everybody here to come to Teugen. It's near Apeldoorn. You can experience electric flight yourself. You can get in and get up in the sky. It's happening right now. It's real. It's not only on PowerPoints. Our fleet consists of 4 Pipistrel Velis Electros, which is the world's first EASA certified fully electric aircraft. There's only one of them. It can fly for 50 minutes. The charging time is about 1 hour. We have, of course, now CO2 emissions. 2 persons. It's truly super quiet, and we can get 180 kilograms combined passenger weight. So we have very light flight instructors. But we flew with André Kuipers, and that was actually pretty much the max. Our mission is to get as many people excited about electrical flying by showing that e-flying is possible today. Not many people know that, but it is actually every time a surprise for them to discover that it's already happening. This is an impression of how many people we got inspired, like Mark Harbers. He flew with us together with Lodewijk Asscher. We were on German television. Cora van Nieuwenhuizen opened our school. We had an episode in Klokkenhuis, one of my favorites, to inspire the younger generation. The Ministry of Defense, which is now a client of us. And even the king here at Elaad got a view in the cockpit. He promised us to fly with us, but we still didn't get an invite from WA von Buren, but we're waiting for it. If anybody has his number, please give it to me. And we have famous professors like Maarten. That's André Kuipers over there. He's holding his stomach, you see. He's a super nice guy. And of course, we had the KLM Electric Flying Connection Tour, our first branded event. Very proud of it. Jolanda still here? Yes. Thank you. It was super nice. Yeah, you told about it. I think you said everything about it, so it's super nice. And sometimes a picture says more than 1,000 words. I think it's this picture. The super tiny, small Pipistrel Velis Electro above the giants. There's literally something in the air on this picture. Some fun facts about Teugen, our home base. The director of the airport is over there, Matthijs. Nowhere else in the world there are as many electric flights as in Teugen. So last year, it's a little bit strange over there, but more than 10% of all the movements, the flying movements, were electric. So it's more than 6,000 movements. And that is 3,000 e-flight hours and 7,000 landings. We are an academy, like a flight school. So we have students, 49, and 9 graduated. I was number 9. We have also B2B clients. So we are the flight school of KLM Flight Academy. LVNL, which is the airspace organization, how do you call it? Luchtvaart, verkeers, something. And the police, and also most recently the Ministry of Defense are flying with us. Our investment status, always interesting. We're a startup, sort of scale up. We got a seeding round. We got a super nice subsidy of the EFRO React, which is a COVID recovery fund. They made it possible to make our hangar sustainable. That's the next slide. And we're in the second seeding round right now. Oh, skip one. This is our HQ, our home base. This is a huge hangar in Teugen Airport. We installed the 580 solar panels on the roof. It's now over here, but there come more on the small roof over there. And then we have the 580 solar panels. Sort of in the picture over there at the little tree, there is a huge battery, more than 500 kilowatt hours. And yeah, if it's running at the end of this month, we are able to charge on the air side 4 E-planes with the CCS chargers, and on the land side, at the same time, 10 cars. And that's truly unique in the world. We do it together with Ethan and Hedgehog and a lot of other parties. But it's really unique in the world that we can actually fly and drive carbon neutral, especially the flying. This is the only place in the world where we can do this right now. Another place where we want to do it is Bonaire. It's still under construction. In 2022, we started with the preparations for E-Flight Academy at Bonaire, because Bonaire is a special Dutch region, so we have the same regulations over there. And Felix invited us to start a business over there, but it's pretty difficult to start a business. So we're still looking for investors. So if you're interested and have a little money, and then talk to me during the drinks, or where's the camera? If you are online, you can send me an email at marlijn@efly.nl. The weather is, of course, very good for making a lot of E-Flight training hours over there. And it's a super interesting location because, you're on an island, so you need to go to other islands or the mainland. And the other islands are, the distance in between of Curaçao and Bonaire and Aruba are super interesting for electric flying. But we want to start there as a flying school, but that's the first thing we can do over there. The last part today is opportunities for e-flying in Europe and the Caribbean. Right now, we like to start where we can start today. And with electric flying, it's a sustainable pilot training. That's the only thing you can actually do with electric flying right now. And that's what we like to do. And we have a super interesting marketing insight over here. The world needs a lot of pilots. So this is research done by Boeing. And it says that only in Europe, 146,000 pilots are needed, the demand for pilots in the next 20 years. So in about 10 years, that's almost 80,000 pilots for the next 10 years. So our big, hairy, outrageous goal for E-Flight is that we want to enable 1 million electric pilot training flights before 2033, so in the coming 10 years. That seems a lot, but I think it's doable. Because look at this. The average pilot in training makes 180 hours. That's for commercial pilots, 180 hours. We think that we can electrify on an average in the coming 10 years. So now it's 35%, but if you take the total in 10 years, I think it's 70%. So if we want to make 1 million training hours in 10 years, we need 8,000 pilots. So that's 800 pilots a year. So that's doable, right? So that's our mission. And the best news is, we started already. We already made thousands of hours in Teugen, and now we want to expand it around the world. So, if you want to join us, we're looking for flight academies, airlines, governments, entrepreneurs who want to join us and who believes in the same mission as we do, and want to partner up with us to electrify that 1 million electric pilot training flights. So you can join today. If you are interested, say hi to me at the drinks or send me an email if you are online. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, impressive, and congratulations with your certificate for aviation. My question to all speakers is, what do you need from the new Dutch government, the new European Commission, or the government on the ABC island, apart from the 250,000 euros in pocket money? But what is your policy goal you need?
Yeah, I have a very simple one. And I will vote for the party which will give a free landing fees for electric airplanes in the coming 10 years. Because we make a lot of landings and we're not subsidized about it. It's crazy. Even with a KLM tour, where we're promoting electric flying, we still have to pay the landing fees. And we have a lot of discussions with airports. And I do not blame the airports, but I think the government can help us with it.
Very tangible. Thank you very much. Well, let's switch again. Applause, yes. Thank you. Marlijn van Vliet, E-Flight Academy. This was Arnhem. The next presentation is a dual presentation, again in the Caribbean, the Dutch Caribbean Corporation of Airports. And we have two speakers, Geraldine Blom and Johan Christiaans. Can you hear us? Can you see us? Maybe you can switch on your cameras. Martijn, do we have a connection? Communication department is working on it, I see. They're laughing, so we'll probably manage. Hey, good morning, Geraldine. I introduce you as Geraldine Blom, but I see now the text behind is Ras. Sorry. I can see you, we can see you, but we can't hear you yet. Martijn, can you do a sound check? If you can turn on your audio, I'll switch off the microphone and then the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Baerte. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Geraldine Ras and I work for the representation of the Netherlands in Aruba. Aruba is an island in the Caribbean Sea, and together with Bonaire, Curaçao, St. Maarten, Saba, Statia, Aruba forms the Caribbean part of the Dutch kingdom. Though the islands are close to each other, flying between the islands is a challenge. In 2021, the Dutch Caribbean Corporation of Airports, which is a cooperation between the airports of the 6 islands, was founded and set a goal to make flying between the islands more affordable, more efficient, and more sustainable. Joanne Christians, program manager of the DCCA, is going to explain how the DCCA intends to achieve that goal. The floor is yours, Joanne.
Thank you, Geraldine. Good morning, good afternoon. I will dive right into it. Next slide, please. For today, I will tell you about the DCCA, our common challenges, our shared ambitions, highlights, the Memoranda of Understanding, the Flight to the Future event, and our roadmap. Next slide, please. So the DCCA, we are looking to the journey into the future and making affordable, efficient, and sustainable inter-island connectivity within the Dutch Caribbean. Like Geraldine, next slide. Like Geraldine already pointed out, the DCCA was established in April of 2021 as a collaboration platform among the 6 commercial airports of the Dutch Caribbean. The primary aim was to enhance the quality of each airport through mutual assistance, information exchange, knowledge transfer, and expertise sharing. It's based on that platform that we as airports in the Dutch Caribbean are collaborating and helping each other out. We, from Aruba Airport, we're helping St. Maarten Airport prepare for their audit of ICAO, and vice versa. Within the other airports, we are collaborating, exchanging knowledge, helping each other on processes, operational, safety, security, and all those areas. Next slide, please. However, we already, back then, identified challenges in the inter-island connectivity. Island-to-island travel can be very expensive. Lastly, we got a lot of messages here in Aruba that a flight between Aruba to Bonaire was trickling around $500 to $600, which is very expensive for not only the local community, but also our visitors who would like to go island hopping. Also, the airlines in the market, the regional, the local carriers are using very outdated aircrafts. We have an example of a DHC-6 Twin Otter, which dates back to 1965. Imagine how old that aircraft is. Also, we lack reliability due to the limited capacity, high pricing, and limited operational schedule. For instance, if one player falls out, the demand becomes in such an extent that you cannot find seats, and if you're able to find seats, this will be very, very expensive. The inter-island connectivity is also subject to very strict regulations, which makes it very difficult for new players or the existing players to expand their current routes. So the DCCA identified its social responsibility in unifying the local residents across Dutch Caribbean islands by bolstering fundamental pillars of sustainable global progress, the economy, the environment, and the social well-being of the residents of the Dutch Caribbean islands. Next slide, please. So imagine if we can bring back the connectivity and the passenger volume within the Dutch Caribbean islands in a sustainable way. So let's change the paradigm of inter-island connectivity. Next slide, please. Making it efficient, making it affordable, and also sustainable. So how do we want to achieve this? Next. On the slide, you can see the Dutch Caribbean Corporations of Airports, DCCA. Last year, during the Flights to the Future event in Aruba, we signed an MOU, which was signed by the airports and the governments, including the Netherlands. And this MOU is based on the 3 pillars of affordability, efficiency, and sustainability. As a result of this MOU, a progress committee was installed. This progress committee is represented by the 6 CEOs of the 6 airports, but also from other representatives of the Ministerie ENW and other very important stakeholders, such as the civil aviation authorities. As a result thereof, also a task force and core team was installed. And the main responsibility of this core team is to prepare a joint strategic plan where we will indicate how to achieve the long-term, the short, medium, and long-term goals for making the connectivity again affordable, sustainable, and efficient. Next slide, please. So to give this joint strategic plan more body and content, we divided it into 4 building blocks, being the airline and market development, regulations and flight permits, business development, infrastructure for the hybrid and electric aircrafts. These building blocks will result in recommendations based again on each pillar of affordable, efficient, and sustainable. Examples of these recommendations are sorry, there was another conversation ongoing. So examples of these recommendations can be the harmonization tariff we would like to introduce. Aruba Airport will start very shortly with a pilot program for inter-island flying, and also the air service incentive program, which will be an incentive program to bridge the gap between the use of traditional fossil fuel into sustainable green options. All these recommendations resulting from the joint strategic plan will be then go over into an execution implementation phase, for which an execution team will be installed with the primary responsibility to implement the joint strategic plan, but also to ensure there is sufficient exchange of knowledge between the 6 islands, the Netherlands, and all the parties involved. So with that being said, our end goal, next slide please, for the coming 5 to 10 years will be to make the air transportation shuttle between the islands with the principles, again, of affordability, efficiency, and sustainability. We also aim to have reliable air connections between the ABC islands and the SSS islands. The concept will be based on the hop-on, hop-off terminal, seamless, digital, affordable, and efficient. Also, we aim to have electrical, green-powered 20 to 50 seaters whenever the technology is available, And our ultimate ambition would be to lower the round-trip airfares with around 50%. Next slide, please. So the Caribbean islands are perfectly positioned to become leading in electric flying. As you can see, the distance between Aruba and Curacao is only 130 kilometers, between Aruba and Bonaire, 194 kilometers. Also, the SSS islands are in very close proximity to each other, which makes it very interesting for electric flying. The operating costs can also be much lower. We have unlimited supply to sunshine and wind, which can also enable the ecosystem around electric flying to be green. And our needs would be around 90 to 50 seaters to cater to the market, making it very attractive for pilot programs of electric flying. We also, next slide please. We also aim for efficiency. We currently realize that a lot of time is being spent before your flight, before your 30 minutes flight from Aruba to Curacao to go through airport processes. So also on the pillar of efficiency, we would like to drive it as digital, as seamless as possible by the usage of e-gates, and also by trying to create a Schengen principle between the Dutch Caribbean islands where we can fly with our local ID instead of passport. Next slide, please. So all this, we would like to formalize into MOU for coming November in Curacao, an MOU between the airports and the governments, thus the signatories of last year, and an MOU between the DCCA and the airlines. So the first MOU will cover the introduction of the harmonization tariff, the air service incentive program, like I mentioned, but also the commitment from the 6 airports to the execution team that will be responsible to implement the joint strategic plan. While the MOU between the airlines and the DCCA is aimed to make sure that any discounts received from this program, from this initiative by the airlines will be also passed through to the end user, being the passengers, which is the reason why we are doing all this effort and making it sustainable, making it efficient, and making it affordable. So with that being said, I would like to invite you to register to participate in November in Curacao or online for the Flight to the Future event. The event program has been set. We will have 3 presentations and several panel discussions. So go to our website, register, and make sure you don't miss out on this event, because it will be big. We will have some very exciting announcements, and also we will be signing some very concrete agreements moving forward on how to implement and make this happen for the region. So I will share with you, next slide please. I will share with you our timeline, where we started in 2021, all the actions that we have been taking and will be taking in the coming years, until we reach our end goal, hopefully in 2035, to have zero-emission flights between ABC and SSS islands. Next slide, please. I would like to thank you very much for your attention today and having us and explain this very beautiful project for the region. We are very passionate about this project, and we hope that we can have your support to making this happen for the Dutch Caribbean islands. Thank you.
Yeah, the microphone is on, sorry. Thank you very much, Geraldine and Joanne. Impressive presentation. There was a very, very big applause. I hope you could hear it here. Well, hereby, again, please, the big applause. And actually, my question to all speakers is, how can the Dutch government help, or the European Commission? Because we have elections here in Europe, but you are very clear. You want that MOU signed. And the governments, I think that's the governments of the individual islands, but also the national government. Or could you need some extra help? How can we use that momentum of the elections?
I think it is very important for us that the new government, the new cabinet, remains focused on sustainable aviation. Sustainability is not only about the green and the environment, but also economically sustainable for the local residents of the islands. So our appeal would be for the new cabinet to continue having this in their program, and also to keep collaborating and exchange knowledge with us in the region.
Yeah, I think it's a great appeal, and that you mentioned it's not only about greening the system, new jobs, economic activities, but it's also very important out of social aspect to get the injured to a hospital, but also get people for affordable prices to visit their families in other regions or other islands. Thank you.
That is correct, because if you look at the communities of the Dutch Caribbean islands, we are very much linked with each other. A lot of us have families in the other islands as well. So the social impact of the DCCA initiative is humongous. When we visited Saba and Statia, we realized from the ABC Islands and even St. Maarten how well connected we are to the world. But for Saba and Statia, it's a different perspective. And it makes you realize also that it is our social responsibility as the region to do something about it.
Thank you. We'll get back to you in a panel discussion, but first our last speaker, Jurjen de Jong. We know each other for a long time out of e-mobility. What's your perspective on this topic on aviation? Because you are also in the electric flying connection. Floor is yours.
Oh, well, okay.
Yes, now I hear myself. Thanks, Bart. It's okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here. Yeah, I call it back to home grounds. It used to be my home ground for at least 12 years of electric driving, and I'm very happy to be back. Yeah, basically with electric flying. And maybe, yeah, something on the, let me see if it works. Probably this one. Yeah. On my own background and motivations, what I mentioned, my history with electric mobility started almost 15 years ago. And one of the first things I did was buy an electric car, like you can see in the picture behind. Could only go for 100 kilometers. Sometimes I have to fold in the mirrors to make my destination and do multiple charge stops a day. But I was super proud. Maybe you can see it in the picture. And it was really the start in experiencing it. And I think the analogy with today is super strong. Like the Nissan Leaf was the first production car, serious production car in the world. And the same with the Pipistrel Velis, which is the first serial production plane in the world. And I think we are at the same point in time where we were with electric driving about 12 years ago. Next, yeah, I made a career in electric driving. I think in the Netherlands we were hugely successful. Elaad played a big role, but also I see a lot of familiar faces who played a big role in that, and we really are one of the leading players in the world. And yeah, for me it was time to move on. I thought electric driving is getting there. The train is on the track, and it can do without me. So I sold off my company Green Flux, and first I took some rest, and then I thought, what is really important? Where do I really want to spend my time on? If I have a green heart, I'm really motivated to leave the earth better than when I entered it. So I thought flying is people like flying. Flying adds value to our lives, but it is polluting, and there is not a real alternative. So let's work on the alternative, and that was for me a motivation to go into electric flying, next to planting trees on a massive scale and investing in several startups and scale-ups in renewable energy and also electric flying. So it's good that you know that history and sometimes also explains my passion. That passion is nice to have, but can also sometimes be a little troublesome if you are meeting the same players 12 years later who are hindering the whole process, like in the automotive industry. So it's a revisiting of developments. So on electric flying, I did two things. Together with Maarten Steinbuch, but also with Marlijn, we started the electric flying connection. Maarten already told you about the electric flying connection, a group of more than 50 very motivated organizations to really stimulate electric flying. And next to that, I also started Energy to Fly. And today it's good to go a little deeper into Energy to Fly, because I think what we are doing has the most analogy to electric driving. And before I tell about that, I'd like to know something from you, from the audience. How many of you are involved in aviation? Okay, that is about 25%, I would say. And how many of you are involved in automotive? 40%, I would say. So I think this is a unique moment that we really have an already more or less, it's not mature, electric driving is not mature, but still we already made a lot of progress, and a more infant industry like electric aviation together to exchange ideas. And I think we heard many ideas today from KLM, from E-Flight, from TU Eindhoven, from also where they are really longing for it, like the Caribbean islands. So the use cases are there, but what is hindering us? What can we do today to really get started? I was just talking to Onuf. He said, yeah, we have to keep on moving, because that's what we did with electric cars. We were driving around with those Nissan Leafs and other small cars, driving around everybody who was willing to do, well, we saw the EFC tour with KLM. Of course, we will do many more EFC tours. But what do we need to prepare? Well, our vision, like Maarten already explained, is that the first step could be regional aviation. So short distance, more than 3,000 to 5,000 airports over Europe. US has even more than 5,000 airports. But you need one charging standard. You need to have one charge. Well, I've worked on the business for 15 years, but charging connector had to use at every airport. So that is the basis. But also the airport itself, it really has to be integrated. All the devices, all the appliances have to be able to communicate with each other. And that is what we are good at the Netherlands, but also that's what we are good at ELAAD. That's the whole communication. That's also why we have this seminar today with the Open Charge Alliance. And last but not least, of course, renewable energy. And we have to do it via renewable energy. Well, the problem you already know, basically. If you let all the OEMs go their own way, they will all come up with their own plugs, etc., etc. I think we already we are really going the right direction, because I think in the last 2 years, with starting the OCA aviation work group, but also the knowledge from automotive, I think we are going to more or less a few standards. And I think CCS and MCS, so the combined charging standard, and the megacharger standard, I think they will become the basis of electric flying. Maybe we have a Chinese version, and maybe there will be another version, but it will really go that direction. So I think we're on the right track, but we should really strive for that, because that's important, of course, when you want to land your plane, that you can reliably charge. You don't want to have any hassle with that. But on the other hand, within the airport, all devices have to be connected to each other. So airside, landside, batteries, solar, it has all has to be able to communicate. So how does the electric airport look? Well, basically behind me you see a picture, and you see the most important is you see the solar power. That is, yeah, the most useful energy. Of course, we know on limited grid capacity, so it would be great that airports can generate a lot of solar power themselves. I think most airports are able to do that, also in the Caribbean. You should store that energy, and then you should divide that energy over all the modalities. So it's not only an electric airport, but it should become an electric mobility hub. So you can charge cars, you can charge buses, but also ground service equipment, and of course electric plane. You can do that via mobile chargers, you can do that via fixed chargers, big chargers, small chargers. Also via the solar charger, which we used at the EFC tour. So many possibilities. The important thing is that they can all communicate to each other, and that the energy can flow freely, so that you have no limitations, and that therefore you can have a very limited grid connection. That is crucial. And also lean on the automotive knowledge and already what we gained for the last years. What I basically already mentioned, that I think MCS and CCS, you see the green area. Also from a communication perspective, MCS and CCS provide the best basis for all the devices to communicate with each other. And I think that's very important, and we should not let other, from geopolitical forces like a GPT standard, it's great, but it's not that compatible with OCPP or OCPI. So I really would go for the basis we already developed for more than 10 years in Europe, and also at ELAAD and with the OCA. So I think it's good that within the OCA we keep hammering on that we really use those standards, because yeah, the electricity has to flow without limitations. So interoperability is the key for all of us to work together. Within the OCA, we are very happy that the Open Charge Alliance established separate working groups. I'm really happy that Lonneke participated in this action and set the pace. And now it's up to us to join this aviation group and together to set the standards. We did it once before with electric driving. I think we can all be proud that we set the standards for the whole world. And I think for aviation we can do the same trick. So yeah, I would really invite you to actively participate. If you do that, then the other standards like OCPP, OCPI, the smart charging protocols, etc., they will come behind. They will follow. So, yeah, for me that's crucial. So yeah, I would say, please join. You know where to find the OCA. You can. My colleague Jeroen is here. He's heading the working group of aviation, but we really want to make progress. Then maybe I already explained it a little bit, but last I came back from a trip to Bonaire, and I was looking at here at the bottom right. You see a charging area of all kind of ground service equipment. Well, some of you have a technical background. If you really look closely, you see they have all different kinds of charging plugs. And I really think that even that electric planes are not there yet, only small planes, that already with the ground service equipment we should start using all the same standards. And that's not tomorrow, but that is now. That is for Schiphol, but also for all the other airports to really use those standards, because this is not helping. I know parties are really working on it, but it is good to get help, because here at ELAAD we know what to do, and slowly you can grow from cars, buses, ground service equipment to charging. And last but not least, you don't have to limit yourself to electric airports, but you can even think on a bigger scale. You can think on an island scale. I think we have the knowledge and the experience to help islands. The island of Bonaire does not have any car charging infrastructure at all. They don't have buses, not even electric buses. So the Dutch government has to do something, that's for sure. So we can help them by doing it first time right. And I think that could be great to help them. Not only put a charging infrastructure for electric planes, but set the basis for cars, buses, and ground service equipment. And then we really have an island which is prepared for the electric future. And I think that's where we are doing it all about. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jurjen. For the audience online, in a few minutes we'll start the panel discussion with Geraldine and Johan, Felix and Marlijn, and of course you. So if you have questions, please state them in the chat. But first, my last question for you, you know what it is. You already mentioned a little bit on standardization, a little bit of budget for transition. How can the Dutch government, after the Dutch elections, can help, or the governments in the Caribbean help make this work, or even the European Commission?
Yeah, I think work needs to be done on all different, on all the levels. So on Dutch government levels, Caribbean level, but also on European level. Standardization I already mentioned, but also really stimulate innovation. If you look pure for the Netherlands, then we have a very fossil-based economy. I estimate that about 20% of our GDP is connected to the fossil economy. By 2050, hopefully, it will be gone. But that means that we have 20% less GDP. What will fill that void? What will come next? We really need a government who stimulates ideas like electric flying, like really advanced battery technology, etc., to really stimulate innovation, green innovation to do this. That I would really long for.
Innovation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. May I ask Marlijn also to join the stage here? And Felix, you're already on screen. Everybody can see you. Martijn, can you also add Geraldine and Joanne? So we have the panel complete. We're waiting for Geraldine and Joanne.
Already in a bar, probably. It's quite early.
I see Martijn shaking his head. Let's wait. Yes, there they are. Hello. Nice. Good to see you again. A panel discussion. Maybe in the chat, a first question came in for the audience here. Who might I give the floor? Please raise your hands, and my colleague Celine will come to you. Celine, the second row. Oh, you, yeah. Well, go ahead. Who are you, and what is your role, and your question, of course? Martijn, the microphone.
Yeah, it's on. My name is Geert Boosten. I'm with DEAC, with one of the organizations mentioned by Felix. I would like to thank all the panelists for their presentations. Anticipating on the question that Jurjen moved forward in what is holding us back, I would like to add education and applied research. I think if we want to, and glad to hear your views on this, if we want to really move forward, we have to train young people, professionals, and maybe also for the next government, we have to raise the barriers between VMBO, HBO, and WO, so that more students work together, learn together on practical issues and on more fundamental issues. How can we speed up this in the projects we're working on?
Jurjen, would you like to answer this?
Yes, of course. Yeah, Geert, thanks for your question. I think very important. We can also see with electric flying that a lot of young people and young professionals are really positively motivated by the possibilities of electric flying. So it also gives them hope, and I really think it's important to educate as many young people as possible, because education is most important. I know there are initiatives at Bonaire and also in the Netherlands, but I think we really can beef it up. So Geert, if Baerte will ask you the question on the politics, I think education in new technology, and not only because new technology provides the possibilities to go to a carbon-free future, I hope, but also that it provides hope. So yeah, I think it's really, really important.
Okay, we'll add education also on the wish list.
Absolutely.
Celine, here on the second row, the gentleman in the dark blue polo shirt also has a question. What is your name and your question?
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm engineer at Kirion, Alliander. But I have a question for the Bonaire side of the story, because if I recall correctly, Bonaire has around 40 megawatts on 5 generators and a solar park of somewhere around 6 megawatts. And if they want to have electric planes, how is the grid going to operate that? Are there already plans to sustain that power? Because a Piper, the mini plane should be somewhere around 22 kilowatts. Yeah, but when you get the 20 to 50 passenger planes, which they are looking at, for example, the Maeve, and it has a power of 4 megawatts, and you want 1 or 2 of those, then you have half of the electricity of the island.
Yeah, Felix, I know there's a company, de water- en energiebedrijf Bonaire, het web. Can you answer this question?
Of course. He's completely right. One of the main challenges we have right now on Bonaire is also the growth of the island itself. Every year we have 1,000 additional inhabitants that are staying on the island, heavy energy demand. When last time Jurjen was on the island and we had this presentation on charging volumes and power necessities for the future, the growth of the energy company right now is mainly focused on giving the inhabitants its renewable power that is needed. So we need to beef up, just like Jurjen also says, is not be reactive but proactive and install more renewable power, that if this new technology becomes available, then this power in renewable energy is also available. They are now beefing up before 2025 that we have 80% of renewable power, but that with the pilots it not should be such a big deal, but with aircraft being bigger and having more charging power, this will need to be stepped up dramatically to keep the pace.
Thank you very much for this question.
Baerte, can I add a small thing to that? I think, actually, I visited the seminar of DCCA on Aruba last year, and I got the same question on stage. And people think big planes, a lot of energy, the grid is going to explode. We are not there yet. We don't have those big planes yet. So I think it will be an evolutionary process. So it starts with the pipistrelles. You can charge them with these solar panels here. We also have mobile batteries where you can charge 2 or 4 with. So you can build it up really, really slowly without compromising the grid. I talked to Web. I know how in the Netherlands, if you compare the grid in the Netherlands to the grid at Bonaire, then we have a very robust grid here. So I think all the airports in the world, you have to factor in grid capacity problem. So the solution should always be via batteries and temporary storage. I think that should be part of the solution and not bigger grid connections. The challenges of the grid are already big enough. So basically the electric airport should help the grid instead of hamper the grid.
Joanne, maybe you want to add something from your perspective?
Yes, sure. From one of the short-term recommendations that the DCCA will be presenting on this sustainable pillar would be that I believe Bonaire did it already, but the other 5 islands, we have to conduct an energy mapping study in order to determine what is the capacity of the islands, but also what is needed at the airports in terms of infrastructure. How many solar panels does each airport need? How many charging stations? How many batteries? And that is in order to, like Jurjen already point out, that the airports also needs to not put an additional pressure on the existing grid, but also be ready to evolve and have that whole ecosystem at the airport ongoing and prepared for electric flying.
Thank you. Any other questions here in the audience? Make up your mind. There is one question in the chat, and that is maybe for you, Merlijn. The question is by, let me check on my phone. When do you think the first full electric 9-passenger aircraft will be realistically commercial available, and will you educate the pilots? It's a question by Jeroen Willems online.
I really don't know. Jeroen, sorry. No, we're a company which is involved in things which we can actually use right now. So that's the Pipistrel Velis Electro. And as soon as there is a 9-seater multi-engine electric aircraft, we will use it. But I really don't know when it will be there.
Okay, I see Jan Willem. He
2028, I hear it now.
Will Celine, can you drop the microphone to Jan Willem? Or take the stage, Jan Willem?
Yeah, so I was actually really looking this up a moment ago. In the end of the day, we are all here because we want to fly. And to fly, you need an aircraft. So if you take, realistically speaking, at Veridian and aviation, we are talking 27, 28. If you take a look at our own estimates, we are end of the decade, just past the end of the decade. So it's 2031. That's the best estimate that we have. Hard Aerospace is predicting 2027 now. That's the hybrid electric aircraft. So realistically speaking, it will take another 5 years before we fly 9-seaters perhaps, and it will take at least 9 or 10 years before we fly in line, I would say. Best estimate.
Okay, thank you very much. Some more questions here. Maybe the last question. Two more questions. Celine, the gentleman on the right. Who are you?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Jens. I'm currently doing my internship at KLM, and I got a question for Merlijn. How do the operating costs of the Pipistrel electric aircraft compare to the regular Pipistrel aircraft that you also have in your fleet, if I'm correct?
Yeah, that's true. We have one a traditional aircraft. It's called Pipistrel Virus, which is basically totally the same aircraft, but then with a Rotax motor. And the maintenance costs are significantly lower at the electric ones than the motorized ones. Because of it has fewer parts. We know a lot about the electric maintenance. And it's far more simpler to maintain an electric aircraft than a traditional one. In the beginning, it was different because everything was new. So we had something, and we didn't know what it was. So we mailed Pipistrel, and they said, okay, we have to look it up. And every time our plane was on the ground, so it cost a lot of money. And if you calculate that money into the maintenance cost, it's a lot. But now it's getting better and better and more easy to maintain. So yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's significantly cheaper than a traditional plane. Yes.
Jan Bosley from Alliander again. You're speaking all about new standards, but why not use the existing standards for cars? Yeah, because more of the same make it cheaper.
Yeah, that's exactly what I propose. So use CCS for smaller electric planes. I think up to 10 passengers you can use CCS chargers. And above that, you can use MCS chargers. They go up to 3 megawatt. Like Jan Willem showed in his overview. I think that's, for the moment, that's more than enough. Jan Willem also mentioned the timeline. So it's still 10 years to go before we really come to the bigger planes. So, I think that's what we have to do in the OCA to really stimulate everybody to use CCS, MCS, and the open protocols, OCPP, OCPI, Open Smart Charging Protocol. So reuse everything we invented already for automotive.
I think also from safety standard is a wise idea because you have the large population of cars and flying is extremely safe. Yeah?
Yes, I agree completely. I agree completely. Of course, the aviation industry is a new, for me, it was a new industry 2 years ago. Electrification is new for them. And of course, they work with electrification, but still, so there is some work to be done, but that's absolutely what we're striving for. Yeah.
Okay, I think those were the last questions. Then, is there also some coming in? incoming online. Yeah, but that's not a question. The question, I got a text message, what time is the cocktail bar open? Serious question. No, I think this is serious. Next steps before I close this session. I think there are 3 stages. We have the elections. I had some questions to all the speakers. On 6th October, Elaad is going to organize that's a Friday, an election debate. We invited most political parties to provide a candidate who are running for a national parliament to do a debate here. Of course, it's about passenger cars, but we'll also put in a discussion point on electric aviation, maybe clear landing fees, or give some transitional budget, order the new Ministry of Transport to do a project in the Caribbean. We'll put something in. Then a second, I would like to give a little bit of the floor to Joanne to highlight her event on November. Can you tell something more about that in 1 or 2 minutes?
Yes, sure. Thank you. On November 6th and 7th, we will have the 2nd edition of the Flights to the Future event. It will be hosted this time by Curaçao Airport. So we will have several presentations, panel discussions. Also, we have a special panel with the regulators, being the civil aviation authorities. And one of the things that they will be interested there is the discussion on the certification for commercial flights of e-planes and hybrid planes. I think that's a very important discussion. It's not only about having an electric plane, but it also needs to be certified for flying, commercial flying. So we will have a panel on that. We'll have some exciting announcements to make. I can give a sneak peek. We will be announcing a harmonization tariff. I will not go into all the details. I will leave that for you to join us either online or in person in Curaçao. There is a lot more information on our webpage, dccairports.com. So we are looking forward. Last year it was the 1st edition in Aruba. It was a complete success. We had a lot of interest. We have a lot of questions coming in to join us and participate. So you are cordially invited to join us.
Thank you very much for this invitation. And the last stage we'll do is to reach out to the new parliament in the Netherlands, but also the European Parliament, with a short wish list where we could see it's about landing fees, it's about innovation, it's about social responsibility, and of course how we clean aviation. This is for this moment. Thank you all for your attendance. If you're online, sorry, but for now here in Arnhem, the cocktail bar is open. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ja, hey, dankjewel jongen.
Tevreden? Ja, zeker. Dankjewel voor het goede hosten.